Let me start with two apologies. First is, I wanted to present to you a journey through India's competition regime, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is what I did not know about is all the speakers that you're going to hear today, or what little that I heard, are talking about social entrepreneurship. So I'm going to focus on social entrepreneurship, including my own experience as a social entrepreneur for the last 27, 28 years. What I'm going to do is use part of these slides. When, as all of us know, markets don't function in a perfect manner. I mean, they cannot function in a perfect manner at all. There are oddities. And it's one of the reasons that we thought, sitting in Jaipur, this is in 1983, 1984, I think it was 1983, when friends sat down and we were playing Scrabble. We were all smokers at that time, and therefore we needed matchboxes. Out of curiosity, what we found was that you pick up a matchbox, and what is printed behind a matchbox is that it should contain 50 sticks. But it never contained 50 sticks. It contained about 30 sticks or 35 sticks. Now somebody said that panwalas who sell these matchboxes often take out the matchsticks without breaking the seal. So we checked that as well. We bought a carton of 12 matchboxes, and counted that as well, and found the same thing, that there is an average shortage of something like 15 to 20%, and a large number of these matchsticks don't even function. They break, they burn your clothes and what have you. In the good old days, I still remember in a district in West Bengal, the poverty rate was so high that in Midnapur district, that people would buy even matchsticks, 5 matchsticks, 10 matchsticks at a time. Now the second thing about a matchbox was it was symptomatic. It used to cost us 4 annas. 4 annas is 25 paise, a coin which has now been demonetized. That's the value what we are looking at. But when we looked at the whole industry in India, we found that the annual cheating was about 80 to 90 crore rupees. Not too much. If you look at the cement industry, the cheating was much more in terms of shortages, intended shortages. And that is the reason when 3 of us decided to find as to look, how do we go around protecting the consumer interest and ensure that there is an orderly market. And when we formed this Consumer Unity and Trust Society, or what is now called CUTS International, the acronym, the name was chosen in a way in order to convey as to what we wanted to do was to cut injustice and not to take cuts. Even if you look at the situation today, what is much in the news is onion prices. One of the latest jokes which is going around on SMS is that the Reserve Bank of India is accepting onion and garlic as collateral to give you loans until Sharad Pawar is the agriculture minister. That besides, the fact is that if you look, I mean, let me go to the, to the point, as when we started off, it was a voluntary group. It was a voluntary action. From 1984 to 1990, I was a volunteer at CUTS. From 1991 onwards, I became full-time at CUTS. And that is when I became a social entrepreneur. I heard Jagdeep Chokhar describe the definition of social entrepreneurship. Let me give you another definition of social entrepreneurship as far as I could understand it. I was a business entrepreneur. I was a young self-employed entrepreneur running a small factory in Jaipur, along with a partner who was a mechanical engineer. I was the marketing and the management man, and he was the production man, the design man. And 2 of us are doing pretty well in this. But after having set up this voluntary organization called Consumer Unity and Trust Society, I found that unless you professionalize, you will not be able to grow. You will not be able to make that impact which is necessary. And that is why in 1991, I decided to join it full time, much against my family's wishes. It's a difficult task, and that is something which I must share with all you youngsters, that often many of these paths are very arduous. They require a lot of sacrifice. They require a lot of determination, and as well as the will, and some support. My immediate family, my wife was supportive, but my larger family, my father, my mother, my brothers were all very critical about it. That why are you leaving a good business career and getting into this kind of action? Today they are all very happy and quite proud. If you see as I go along to show what this is. Now, the distinction that I draw between a business entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur is the social entrepreneur, as Jagdeep Chokha defined, is not only building up social capital, but is also working with a non-profit goal in mind. And that is why we have what we call the non-profit organizations or the non-governmental organizations. It's something very simply understood, that the tale of a fishing rod versus fishes. I mean, you can provide fishes to the poor, the hungry, etc. But we would rather provide a fishing rod for him to, and enable that poor man to be able to go and fish, rather than to give fish and make him dependent upon charity. And that is the kind of realization that has helped us to grow cuts into what it is today. As you heard in my introduction, we started off as a Rural Development Communication Initiative, a wall newspaper, which began in 1983, 1 year before cuts began, and it is still being published today. It reaches out to a very large number of villages in the state of Rajasthan alone. We don't do it outside, except a few copies here and there. And that has helped to generate that kind of awareness, etc. One of the first campaigns that we did through Gram Gadar was a consumer campaign, Hai Koi Bachane Wala. This was a publication, an edition of August 1984, when there was a 3-day strike by medicine shops on some silly fight on commissions with the manufacturers. And we asked a question to them, I mean, including going and meeting them and say, look, is this a reason for you to call a strike? There are other ways how you can deal with this. And constantly we see today, I mean, there are several examples which have been quoted here, that consumers are not united, they are not together, while sellers of all kinds are always well organized, including lawyers. I mean, lawyers go off on a strike on a very simple thing, just because a lawyer has been hauled up by a police inspector for breaking a traffic rule, and suddenly they go on strike. And it's the victims, all you and me, all of us suffer for it. But what can we do? And that is what we were trying to do through this particular message, is that how do we organize? Or you bring an enabling environment that you cannot, and therefore one of the things that we were able to do in that time was to get the Consumer Protection Act when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. Yeah, this is a poster on consumer rights, Ubhokta Adhikar Jindabad, signed by Rajiv Gandhi in August 1988. This is a man with a vision about consumer protection, and we were able to get the Consumer Protection Act in 1986. It took time. Many of you know about it today. At least those who are educated would know about it. As somebody was talking at lunch as to how many consumers are aware of the Consumer Protection Act, I look at the glass as half full, in as much as a very large number of consumers are aware. And secondly, it's not an issue of only having the law, but the deterrence that the law provides is also equally important. As we say, it is not the stick, it is not the fear of the stick which can also be very effective, rather than using the stick, which can be quite often not effective. Bhai se zyada bhai ka maar ka bhai zyada kaam karta. Yeah. Now, one of the first campaigns, I don't know whether any of you know, this was again in 1985 when there was a shortage of coins in the market. I mean, today none of you are concerned with coins because you don't use coins any longer. I mean, you hardly any of you use 1 rupee coin. You can't buy any damn thing for 1 rupee today, except in some parts of the country which you can. But in those days, coins were very important, whether it is 1 paisa, 2 paisa, 3 paisa, 5 paisa, 10 paisa, and I still have them in my collection. And there was a virulent shortage. And so much so that if a man went to a shop to buy something and he was given in change toffees, or including Niro, the condom, for example. Now this is the cartoon from Jansatta, Rezgari ke badle Nirod. You heard in my introduction that we are probably the India's largest consumer organization today. In fact, what I would like to tell you is this, that it is not something which we are doing only in India, but we are doing it in a very large number of developing countries. One of the things that we learned, and that is the beauty about the Indian socio-political milieu, is the participation by people's action at every point of time. The kind of space that we have in India is one of the best in the world. In fact, in India the number of NGOs is the highest. And as I said earlier in my talk, that it is not only a organization like CUTS which work on policy issues. There are many organizations, including in Delhi, there are some very good ones, the Center for Science and Environment, headed by Sunita Narayan, formerly headed by the former head was Anil Agarwal, the founder, who died out of brain tumor, also an engineer. Another very good organization like ours, but doing much more work on capacity building, less on policy, Priya, Participatory Research in Asia. Rajesh Tandon, also an engineer and an MBA from IIT Kanpur and MBA from Ahmedabad. So there are a very large number of people like you who decided to go into social entrepreneurship as a career, and they have never regretted it. And that is what I would like to encourage you to do. What we've been able to do as CUTS is to work on policy, and therefore one of the reasons why we have often been referred to by many in the media was as the fifth estate. You have the four estates, the legislature, the judiciary, the executive, the media, and the fifth estate is the people's movement and the kind of NGO community that I'm talking about, and which you'll be hearing, which you've heard during the day. Most of us are what we call the part of the fifth estate, and especially a watchdog group like CUTS becomes much more sort of on the stage, because as I said, we are engaged in advocacy, and we do it on the basis of evidence-based research. That is the other thing that is very important, rather than just to do it on the basis of rhetoric or hearsay. And that is again a danger that we've often seen when a very large number of advocacy groups advocate on the basis of and that helps us to bring in a lot of policy changes. I mentioned to you about the Consumer Protection Act, subsequently the Competition Act, the Right to Information Act, where again we had again a very famous activist in Rajasthan called Aruna Roy, who brought about this Right to Information Act, though she works with a grassroots group on issues relating to the poor. At the same time, they do work on a lot of policy issues, and she continues to work with the government in the National Advisory Council, for example. So a large number of us who are like watchdogs or advocacy groups are also engaged in this kind of thing. What we've been able to do at CUTS, and that is something which I am very proud of, is that we have become an international organization. As you see, this is a story which came in the Financial Express sometime in August, trailblazing new heights towards the Desi NGOs go multinational. The first is R.K. Pachauri from Terry, second is yours truly, third is Madhav Chauhan of Pratham, fourth is Rajesh Tandon, who I spoke to you about, and fifth is Bankar Roy, husband of Aruna Roy, who works, who also like many decided to get into social action and not social work really by going to a village near Ajmer district near Ajmer in Rajasthan, and to particularly work on the kind of water shortage which prevailed there. And he's doing now all of us, and I suppose there are others as well, are sharing our knowledge and wisdom across borders, and particularly with the other developing countries. As against others, CUTS also has its own offices in Hanoi, in Vietnam, Lusaka, Nairobi, and Geneva. And so, in the sense that we are a transnational NGO in that sense, and the kind of work we have done makes us feel very proud of what we've been able to do. With that, thank you very much.